Imagine a world where everything you see, touch, and experience isn't real, but an incredibly sophisticated computer simulation. Your thoughts, your emotions, and even the very laws of physics that govern your reality are all part of a carefully orchestrated program designed by advanced beings, possibly from a far future or another dimension entirely. This concept, known as the simulation hypothesis, suggests that what we perceive as the universe could be a virtual construction, akin to a video game, but orders of magnitude more complex. While this notion might sound straight out of science fiction, it has gained a remarkable amount of attention not only in popular culture, but also in serious academic and scientific discussions. Could it be that everything we experience is not really real in the fundamental sense, but a simulation running on some highly advanced computational substrate? And if so, what does it mean for the nature of reality and our place in the cosmos? We'll dive deeply into the simulation hypothesis, exploring its origins, scientific basis, implications, and the vast philosophical questions it raises. From quantum physics and computer science to ancient philosophy and contemporary thought experiments, we'll journey through a range of ideas to understand the fascinating possibility that reality, as we know it, might be a digital illusion. The simulation hypothesis may seem like a modern concept born out of computer science and the advent of virtual reality, but the idea that reality may not be as it seems has ancient philosophical roots. Before we dive into the specifics of the modern hypothesis, it's worth tracing this concept back to its philosophical precursors. One of the earliest recorded ideas that reflect the essence of the simulation hypothesis comes from the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, particularly in his famous work The Republic, where he introduces the allegory of the cave. In this thought experiment, Plato describes prisoners who have been chained in a cave for their entire lives, facing a wall. Behind them, a fire casts shadows of objects, and the prisoners, seeing only the shadows, mistake these projections for reality. To the prisoners, the shadows represent the entirety of existence, and they remain unaware of the real world outside the cave. This allegory is often interpreted as a metaphor for human perception and knowledge. Just as the prisoners mistake shadows for reality, Plato suggests that humans may similarly mistake their perceptions for the true nature of existence. The allegory of the cave asks us to consider the possibility that our reality is but a limited, distorted view of a much deeper, more complex truth. In the context of the simulation hypothesis, Plato's cave suggests that we might be like those prisoners, unaware that what we perceive as real is merely a shadow, or in modern terms, a simulation. The real light or truth might lie beyond our current perceptions, waiting to be discovered if we can escape our virtual cave. Fast forward to the 17th century, and we encounter another influential philosopher, René Descartes, who tackled the nature of reality with his famous philosophical skepticism. In his Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes presents the thought experiment of the evil demon. He hypothesized that a powerful, malevolent being could be manipulating his perceptions, deceiving him into believing that the external world exists, even though it might not. Descartes' evil demon is akin to a virtual simulation, in that it calls into question the reliability of our senses and the certainty of the external world. Descartes ultimately concludes that even if all perceptions are false, the very act of doubting proves that he exists as a thinking being. Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. However, the notion that our senses could be systematically deceived remains a profound exploration of the same kind of doubt that underpins the modern simulation hypothesis. While the Western tradition offers allegories like Plato's cave and Descartes' skeptical thought experiments, Eastern philosophy also contains ideas that resonate with the simulation hypothesis. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the concept of Maya refers to the illusionary nature of the world. Maya is the belief that the reality we experience is not ultimate or fundamental, but a superficial layer that obscures the deeper truth of the cosmos. Buddhist philosophy, in particular, teaches that the self and the material world are impermanent and illusory, and only by transcending these illusions can one attain enlightenment and see the world as it truly is. In this sense, Buddhist thought has long suggested that a perceived reality is a kind of simulation, albeit one created by our own minds, rather than by an external computer program. As technology began to develop and the idea of artificial realities became more conceivable, philosophical discussions about simulated worlds gained new dimensions. In the 20th century, Jean Baudrillard, a French philosopher and social theorist, explored the idea of simulated realities in his work Simulacra and Simulation. Baudrillard argued that modern society had entered an era where reality itself was replaced by simulacra representations or copies of things that have no original. According to Baudrillard, these simulations have become more real than reality itself, blurring the lines between the real and the artificial. Baudrillard's ideas found their way into popular culture and served as an inspiration for The Matrix, a film that portrays humanity living inside a computer-generated reality while their physical bodies are exploited by machines. The movie explores many of the philosophical ideas discussed by Baudrillard, as well as older notions of skepticism about reality, and is often cited as one of the most iconic cultural representations of the simulation hypothesis. While earlier philosophical traditions dealt with questions about reality and delusion, it wasn't until the advent of computer technology that the idea of living in a simulated reality became a scientifically plausible hypothesis. Enter Swedish philosopher Nick Bostrom, who in 2003 published the groundbreaking paper Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?, giving a modern formal expression to the simulation hypothesis. Bostrom's argument in a nutshell. Bostrom's argument starts with a set of assumptions about the future of technology and civilization. He suggests that if we assume technological progress continues unabated, it is conceivable that future civilizations, or even our own civilization in a few thousand years, will have the computing power to run highly detailed simulations of entire worlds, including conscious beings like humans. From this premise, Bostrom arrives at three possible scenarios. Extinction before simulation. The first scenario is that humanity never reaches the level of technological sophistication needed to create realistic simulations, because we either go extinct or destroy ourselves before that point. This could be through nuclear war, climate disaster, artificial intelligence, AI, gonorrhea, or any number of other existential risks. Lack of interest. The second possibility is that advanced civilizations reach the stage where they are capable of creating simulations, but choose not to for ethical or practical reasons. They may decide it's unethical to simulate conscious beings, or they may have no interest in revisiting the past or creating artificial worlds. We are in a simulation. The third possibility is that some advanced civilization does develop the technology and chooses to run simulations, potentially millions or billions of them. In this case, the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber the one real reality, making it statistically likely that we ourselves are living in a simulation. Bostrom concludes that if the first two options are unlikely, then the third, that we are almost certainly living in a simulation, is the most plausible. This has profound implications for how we understand our world, our lives, and the very nature of reality. Bostrom's paper can be distilled into what is often called the simulation trilemma. This trilemma, as noted above, presents three possibilities, one of which must be true. To restate, almost all civilizations at a stage of development go extinct before reaching technological maturity. Technologically mature civilizations have no interest in running simulations. We are living in a simulation. Bostrom himself doesn't claim to know which of these is true, but his argument forces us to reckon with the possibility that our reality may be a simulation. If advanced civilizations can run simulations and choose to do so, then the number of simulated realities could be staggeringly high, making it extremely unlikely that we are in the base reality. While Bostrom's argument provides a philosophical foundation for the simulation hypothesis, the question remains: what evidence or reasoning might suggest that we are indeed living in a simulation? Advocates of the hypothesis point to several key ideas, both from science and philosophy, that seem to support this possibility. 1. The fine-tuned universe. One of the most commonly cited arguments in favor of the simulation hypothesis is the idea that our universe seems fine-tuned for life. The physical constants that govern the universe, such as the gravitational constant, the speed of light, and the strengths of the fundamental forces, are remarkably precise. If any of these constants were even slightly different, life as we know it would be impossible. This fine-tuning has long puzzled scientists and philosophers. Some have proposed the anthropic principle, which suggests that we observe these constants because if they were different, we wouldn't be here to observe them. Others have proposed the multiverse theory, which posits that there may be an infinite number of universes, each with different physical laws, and we just happen to live in one that supports life. Proponents of the simulation hypothesis offer a different explanation. The universe is fine-tuned because it was designed that way. Just as a programmer might carefully set the parameters of a video game to create a specific experience, the creators of the simulation might have fine-tuned the laws of physics to ensure that life could emerge and develop. In this view, the fine-tuning of the universe is not a coincidence, but evidence of intelligent design by the programmers of our simulation. 2. The mathematical nature of the universe. Another argument in favor of the simulation hypothesis is the deeply mathematical nature of the universe. From the laws of physics to the patterns in nature, the universe appears to operate according to mathematical rules. This has led some to suggest that the universe is, at its core, a kind of computational system. Theoretical physicist Max Tegmark has argued that mathematics is not just a tool we use to describe a universe, but the fundamental structure of reality itself. In his view, the universe is a mathematical object, and everything within it, particles, forces, space, and time, can be understood in terms of mathematical relationships. If the universe is fundamentally mathematical, this could be seen as evidence that it is a simulation. After all, computer simulations are built on mathematical rules, and the more deeply we probe into the nature of reality, the more it seems to resemble a vast, complex mathematical structure. 3. Pixelation of reality. One of the most intriguing ideas in support of the simulation hypothesis is the possibility that the universe is pixelated at a fundamental level. In modern computer games and simulations, the world is composed of pixels, tiny, discrete units that combine to create a seamless visual experience. Could the same be true of the universe? In physics, there is a concept known as the Planck length, which is the smallest possible unit of space. Similarly, the Planck time is the smallest possible unit of time. These are not just arbitrary limits, they represent the smallest scales at which the laws of physics as we currently understand them can operate. If space and time are quantized, if there is the smallest possible unit of space and time, then it suggests that the universe is not a continuous smooth fabric, but a discrete pixelated structure. This is exactly what we would expect to find if the universe were a computer simulation, where space and time are divided into small, finite units for computational efficiency. Some researchers have even suggested that certain anomalies in physics, such as the behavior of particles at the quantum level, could be explained by the limitations of the simulation's resolution. Just as a video game might experience glitches or rendering issues when pushed to its limits, the universe might exhibit strange behavior when we try to probe beyond the pixel level of reality. 4. Quantum mechanics and observation. Quantum mechanics, the branch of physics that deals with the behavior of particles at the smallest scales, has long been a source of mystery and confusion. One of the most famous experiments in quantum mechanics is the double-slit experiment, which reveals the strange behavior of particles when observed. In the double-slit experiment, particles such as electrons are fired at a screen with two slits in it. When unobserved, the particles behave like waves, passing through both slits simultaneously and creating an interference pattern on the screen behind them. However, when the particles are observed, when we attempt to measure which slit they pass through, they behave like particles, passing through only one slit and creating a different pattern. This behavior has led to the concept of the observer effect, which suggests that particles exist in a superposition of states until they are observed. At that point, the act of observation causes the particle to collapse into a single state. Some proponents of the simulation hypothesis have drawn parallels between the observer effect in quantum mechanics and the way computer simulations render only the parts of the world that the player can see. In a video game, the environment is not fully rendered until the player turns the camera or moves the character to a new area. This saves computational resources by only simulating what is necessary for the player's experience. In the same way, the universe might only render reality when it is observed. When we attempt to measure the behavior of particles, the simulation collapses the possibilities into a single outcome, much like a video game rendering a new part of the environment. While the simulation hypothesis is a fascinating and thought-provoking idea, it is not without its challenges. Many scientists and philosophers have raised objections to the hypothesis, questioning its feasibility and its implications for our understanding of reality. 1. Technological feasibility. One of the most significant challenges to the simulation hypothesis is the question of whether it is even possible to create a simulation as complex as the universe. While our computer simulations and virtual reality systems have become increasingly sophisticated, they are still far from being able to simulate an entire universe with conscious beings. The sheer computational power required to simulate every particle, atom, and conscious being in the universe would be astronomical. Some estimates suggest that even a planet-sized computer would not be able to handle the complexity of such a simulation. Critics argue that while future technology might be advanced, the scale of the task might simply be too great. However, proponents of the hypothesis counter that we may be underestimating the capabilities of future civilizations. Just as our current technology would seem miraculous to people living a few centuries ago, the technology of a post-human civilization might be orders of magnitude more advanced than anything we can currently imagine. They might use quantum computing, parallel universes, or other advanced techniques to simulate entire worlds. 2. The consciousness problem. Another major challenge to the simulation hypothesis is the question of consciousness. How can a computer simulation give rise to conscious beings? While our brains function through electrical signals and chemical reactions, consciousness itself, the subjective experience of being aware and sentient, is still one of the greatest mysteries in both science and philosophy. Some philosophers argue that consciousness cannot be simulated. According to the hard problem of consciousness, proposed by philosopher David Chalmers, there's something about consciousness that cannot be explained by physical processes alone. Even if we could simulate the behavior of a brain down to the atomic level, it is unclear how this would give rise to the rich inner experience of consciousness. Others, however, suggest that consciousness might be an emergent property of complex systems. In this view, if a simulation is detailed enough, if it includes all the processes and interactions of a real brain, then consciousness might emerge naturally, just as it does in biological systems. If this is the case, then it is conceivable that a computer simulation could give rise to conscious beings like us. 3. Ethical concerns. The simulation hypothesis also raises significant ethical concerns. If we are living in a simulation, then the beings who created the simulation, our programmers, are responsible for the suffering, pain, and hardship that exists in a world. Should they be held accountable for creating a world with disease, war, and natural disasters? Could we argue that it is unethical to simulate conscious beings if those beings are subjected to suffering? These ethical questions become even more pressing if we consider the possibility that future civilizations, possibly even our own descendants, might create simulations of their ancestors or other conscious beings. Would it be ethical for us to run simulations of past civilizations, knowing that the simulated beings might suffer? What moral obligations do we have toward beings that exist in simulated worlds? These questions are not just hypothetical. As our technology advances and we develop more sophisticated simulations and artificial intelligences, we may soon be faced with real-world ethical dilemmas about the treatment of simulated beings. 4. The lack of direct evidence. For all the theoretical speculation, there is no direct evidence that we are living in a simulation. While some philosophical and scientific clues might hint at the possibility, they remain speculative. Until there is hard evidence, such as discovering a glitch in the matrix or finding a way to interact with the programmers of the simulation, the hypothesis remains unproven. Some critics argue that the simulation hypothesis is an unfalsifiable theory, meaning that it cannot be definitively proven or disproven. In this view, the hypothesis is more of a philosophical curiosity than a scientific theory, as it makes no testable predictions and offers no concrete evidence. However, proponents of the hypothesis suggest that we might be able to find evidence of the simulation in the future. If we were to discover fundamental limits to the universe's resolution, or if we were to detect anomalies in the laws of physics that suggest they are artificially designed, this could be taken as evidence that we are living in a simulation. Additionally, advances in our own simulation technologies might eventually allow us to create simulated worlds that resemble our own, lending credence to the idea that we too are in a simulation. The simulation hypothesis has had a profound impact on popular culture, inspiring movies, books, and even philosophical discussions in the public sphere. The idea that our reality might be a simulation resonates with a deep human curiosity about the nature of existence and the boundaries between reality and delusion. 1. Science fiction and film. The Matrix and beyond. One of the most famous cultural representations of the simulation hypothesis is the 1999 film The Matrix, directed by the Wachowskis. In the film, humanity lives in a simulated reality created by intelligent machines, while their physical bodies are harvested for energy. The protagonist, Neo, discovers the truth about the simulation and embarks on a journey to free humanity from its virtual prison. The Matrix popularized the idea of simulated realities and sparked widespread interest in the simulation hypothesis. The film's iconic imagery, the red pill and the blue pill, the glitches in the Matrix, and the notion of escaping a false reality became cultural touchstones for discussions about the nature of reality. Since The Matrix, numerous other films, TV shows, and books have explored the concept of simulated realities. Works like Inception, The 13th Floor, and Black Mirror have all delved into the possibilities of virtual worlds, alternate realities, and the ethical dilemmas of creating simulated beings. 2. Video games and virtual reality. The rise of video games and virtual reality (VR) technologies has also contributed to the popularity of the simulation hypothesis. As video games become more immersive and realistic, they offer a glimpse into what a simulated world might be like. Games like The Sims, Minecraft, and open-world RPGs allow players to create and manipulate virtual worlds, often with a high degree of freedom and creativity. In VR, players can enter fully immersive digital environments that simulate real-world experiences. As VR technology improves, the line between the virtual and the real becomes increasingly blurred, leading some to wonder if our own reality might be just another simulation. 3. The simulation hypothesis in philosophy and academia. Beyond popular culture, the simulation hypothesis has also gained traction in academic and philosophical circles. Scholars in fields ranging from philosophy to computer science have taken Bostrom's ideas seriously, exploring the implications of living in a simulated reality. Philosophers have debated the ethical and metaphysical questions raised by the hypothesis, while computer scientists have speculated about the technological feasibility of creating simulated worlds. In some cases, the simulation hypothesis has even been used as a thought experiment to explore the nature of consciousness, free will, and the limits of human knowledge. The simulation hypothesis is a bold and provocative idea that challenges our deepest assumptions about the nature of reality. Whether we are truly living in a simulation or not, the hypothesis forces us to confront profound philosophical questions about the nature of existence, the reliability of our perceptions, and the possibility of other realities beyond our own. As technology continues to advance, the line between the real and the simulated may blur even further. Virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing all point toward a future where the creation of simulated worlds becomes a real possibility. In that future, we may have to grapple with the ethical, philosophical, and existential implications of creating simulated realities and of living in one ourselves. Ultimately, the simulation hypothesis reminds us that reality may be far more complex and mysterious than we can imagine. Whether or not we are living in a simulation, the exploration of this idea opens up new avenues of thought and inquiry, pushing the boundaries of human understanding and challenging us to question the very fabric of existence itself.